Vancouver to Edmonton to Saskatoon, and today in Winnipeg.
Maybe it's because this is the 8th event in 4 days that my head is spinning, but I think it's more because I'm just very grateful and impressed by the presentations that we've heard tonight. One of the things that has become very clear to me tonight, and I heard a little bit this afternoon in our meeting, but very clear tonight, is that number one, not only can you not separate issues of poverty and issues of climate justice, but in this country, you cannot separate those two issues from issues of Indigenous rights and reconciliation. That is just the overlay of the reality of life in this country, and we need to acknowledge that. So thank you for helping clarify that for me. Thank you very much, Mark. I think your challenge to us is not simple. Of course it's simple, but it really challenges our whole system. And there would be pushback if we were to advocate for simplicity. And it really points out for me the spiritual poverty. Poverty isn't just about not enough resources and money, etc. There can be spiritual poverty, and I'm hearing a lot of that in this cross-country tour. As an elder in BC said to us the very first night, Canada has gone off the path. Yeah. And we are no longer the Canada that we think we are, and that maybe we used to be. And we've got some readjustment that needs to happen. And I think your model of simplicity is certainly one way that would address our spiritual poverty and get us back on the right path. It seems to me I hear repeated themes about broken relationships. In the midst of that, broken relationships with their Creator, broken relationships with each other, broken communities, and a broken relationship with the creation. I wanted to say to Tasha, thank you very much for this new insight for me about the connection of the wellness of the earth linked to the wellness of our women. And again, that just, I think, underlines this whole issue that we have in terms of the breakdown of relationships. And sometimes we just try and deal with one of those relationships, and they are very much related. Sean, I really liked your presentation, and the creativity of the work that you were doing is amazing. I'm just going to challenge you with one thing, because you talked about the role of government is to make it easy for problem solvers. But when we were in Saskatoon the other day, somebody quoted Einstein and said, intellectuals solve problems. Genius prevents problems. And I think you are more of a genius. And that the work that you are doing in terms of laying out prosperity is a really new paradigm, which is not about solving problems, but about preventing them. So I really want to commend you for that. And the final thing I want to say is, Tasha, you articulated the most clearly, but I hear it in all of you, is that there is hope. Oh my God, there are daunting challenges before us, but there is hope. And when I hear that, I am again inspired and reinvigorated. I'm waking up at the end of the day again, and I have energy to go and continue the work. And I think that's the most important message that we can claim in the midst of this, and I thank you all for that.
I like that concept of luxury consumption. That's something, a good way of framing it that I think can be challenged, and I'm very thankful for that. I very much like the way that you framed, I want to be able to say to my children's children, right? I want to be able to say that I did everything I could to make sure that they had something. That is a very profound way of framing that. Just something. And that's really what we're facing. We're wanting to make sure that they have something. So I really much appreciate your sharing. And then the connecting the people who most need the work to the work that most needs to be done. That is excellent. It's brilliant. That's
genius.
Yeah, that's genius. That's something we should be able to offer and put some energy behind. So really appreciate your input.
I mentioned that I work at Citizens for Public Justice, which is an affiliate member of the council. We work on climate change, and one of my staff colleagues was able to go to Quebec City this past week for a meeting of the Green Church movement in Quebec. So she participated in a rally on Sunday around climate change issues. Did any of you hear about it? They were hoping that 5,000 or 10,000 people would come. 25,000 people in the streets of Quebec City calling for action on climate change. My colleague had a little reflection that she sent around this morning saying, the amazing thing was I looked among the crowd to see who I would recognize as being part of the faith community movement. Couldn't find them. Are we invisible? Are we not there? Then she goes to the meeting of the Green Church meeting, and she finds all these different groups that were there. We do a very good job of hiding our light under a bushel. Second challenge, our organization also does some work on refugee issues. And I'll just tell a quick story. We did a study, you can see on our website, about all the difficulties people who work with newcomers to Canada are having, poverty among newcomers and so on. A survey of the sponsorship agreement holders, 70% of whom are churches that receive refugees. 100% of the respondents had difficulty with government. They felt there was a lack of consultation with government as government was changing rules and making it more difficult to settle newcomers. 90% of these people were really worried about the cuts to health services for refugees. They felt the government was doing the wrong thing. But then we asked the question about how many of those, mostly church groups, wrote a letter to their MP and said something about it. 52%. We asked how many of you ever wrote to your local paper a letter to the editor talking about what the problem is and the way to get it solved. 8%. So I think part of the conversation, part of the feedback that Justice Tour is willing to receive from you, those that are active and took the trouble to come out this evening, is what do we need to do? What do we need to say to move this ball forward?